Hey, it's your girl, Carla Renata, back again for episode 58 of the Curvy Film Critic. Happy Cinco de Mayo. And I have a margarita mix right here in the studio of my very own. Stay tuned.
You're tuned into Black Hollywood Live, the world's first digital broadcast network devoted entirely to urban entertainment and pop culture. Tune in right now.
Hey, everybody. It's your girl, Carla Renata, a.k.a. the Curvy Film Critic. And the dude that is jamming right over to the next of me, to the left of me, is Scott Movie Man.
Yeah. Hey, Carla Renata.
Hey, so this was my margarita mix that I was talking about.
This is what I'm talking about. This is happiness right here. Talking movies, talking about anything with my good friend, Carla Renata. I mean, when I see you out and about at a screening, I get excited. I think your mother is afraid of me, and I'm totally down with that. I completely understand.
My mother
It's
over
okay.
The mix? Oh, you are so wrong. You are so wrong. Well, welcome. I'm glad to have you back. It's been a while since you've been over here.
It has been a while. It's been too long since I've been here talking movies with you in an official capacity, because I know we do that all the time when we just run into each other at all these amazing advanced screenings. I mean, it really is, life is glamorous in this business, isn't it? Not so much.
Not so much at all.
But it is fun, and thank you for having me back. It's great to be here.
Of course. It is totally my pleasure. Well, before we kick off into some of your favorite topics like Star Trek, and we're going to talk about Longshot and Intruder and a couple of other films, I wanted to talk about something that has been in the news that affects us critics.
Sure.
So let me just pull up my little article that I can talk about. There is a critic friend of mine. His name is Carlos Aguilar. And he wrote a review of a film called El Chicano. Mm-hmm. And when he wrote this review, Joe Carnahan, one of the producers, came for him, both barrels blazing.
Whoa.
And a couple of weeks ago, Olivia Munn came for some chicks called the Fug something or another. I can't remember.
Go Fug Yourself.
Go Fug Yourself.
Yeah.
She came for them. And so I'm like, why is it like open season on critics right now? And this is my thought about all of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I could read what Joe Carnahan said, but it's really boring. And if you want to look it up, go look it up on Twitter because it's there. Or if you follow Carlos on Facebook, it's on his Facebook page. He's very open and transparent about how that transaction went down. But what's really interesting is Joe Carnahan deleted his Twitter account, not just the tweet, but the Twitter account.
The whole account. Whoa.
He got rid of the whole account. This is the thing. I love how when you're actually doing your job of being a critic and doing criticism, people want to come for you and have something to say. I've had people come for me sometimes. And this is the thing. People won't come for me on Twitter. They'll come directly to my site and come for me and say stuff. Somebody came for me this week about my review on Knock Down the House. So for people that haven't seen Knock Down the House, it's a movie on Netflix about these 4 women that ran in 2018. One of them won. Ocasio-Cortez, AOC as they like to call her, she won, but the other 3 women didn't. But it follows their journey through the course of those events, right?
Yep. Uh-huh.
Somebody came to my site and was like, yeah, all I hear in this post is woman this. I'm a woman. And I'm like, why are you being a victim?
Listen, as we all know by now, whether you're a critic or not, the internet, social media, it is open season. Like, it is really, really rough. Like, people troll on, whether it's Twitter, whether it's on your official, personality Facebook page, especially on the comments of the YouTube page. I mean, I've been attacked at places like the YouTube comment section.
Oh, really?
And it's just the nature of the beast. There's nothing you can do about it. But there are times when it does cross the line, as it sounds like this did.
Yeah, I think that really kind of, I feel like both, and I love Olivia Munn, like she's one of my favorites, so I was kind of surprised that she was so uber sensitive about them going off on her fashion. I mean, I guess I would be upset if somebody talked about my fashion too, but I'm not going to like rake them over the coals on social media.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. But this is how I feel about it, and I said this to you off air. Criticism is like art in a museum. Mm-hmm. A painting will hang in any museum around the globe, right? There will be a whole museum full of people that are seeing that exact same painting on the wall, and no one is going to see it the same. The same thing happens with a movie. You can be in a whole theater. You can be in a theater with 1,500 people watching Avengers Endgame, and nobody's going to walk out of there with the same experience because we're all, at the end of the day, we're all individuals with our own taste and our own way of looking at things, and the way we decide that we want to enjoy something and what is entertainment to us and what isn't entertainment to us. Having said that, I don't get why people are so salty about people criticizing them.
Listen, movies are art, and art, like anything, is subjective. You know, like you know, no one is going to see the same movie. I mean, look, in the case of Endgame, Avengers, I mean, it's like what 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. So okay, so 95% of the critics liked or loved the film, and you have 5% that didn't. Does it make those 5% of the critics that didn't like the movie wrong? No, they just saw a different movie, and you respect that. I don't agree with it, but there's something about respectfully disagreeing. It's all respectful. You know, I've been, you know, over the years, when I've reviewed a movie, if it was a film that I really loved, that not a lot of people didn't, I take pride in that. I'm empowered when I love a film that a lot of people didn't, because I saw something in the film that I loved and they didn't. I think the biggest example of that, a movie that I still get called out on from time to time, is I loved Spider-Man 3. The Tobey movie back in 2007. I mean, it's not a great movie. It's not nearly as good as its predecessor, Spider-Man 2, which is like one of my all-time favorite superhero movies, but I thought it had its merits, and I latched onto those merits, and I really did enjoy the film. I thought it did wrap up that trilogy pretty effectively, even though it wasn't as good as its predecessor. But to this day, I still get people calling me, I can't believe you like Spider-Man 3. Well, you know, that's just the way it goes. But then there are times, like, if I don't love a film that everyone else did, then I feel like I missed something, you know, because, like, I remember, keeping on the superhero theme, when The Dark Knight opened in 2008, I mean, I love the movie now, but it was so radically different from anything that I ever seen before, anything that anyone had ever seen before.
But you weren't feeling it at the time?
Not when I first saw it. I had to go back and see it again, and then I was, okay, I get it. But when I first saw it, I felt like I was afraid to say something because I knew that I was in the minority of a film that everyone else loved, but I didn't. It's interesting how that works.
It really is interesting how it works. But I just wanted to bring it up since you were here, because I admire you as a critic. You're like my modern day Roger Ebert dude. So I have great respect for you, and I look up to you immensely in that lane. So I really was grateful that you were here this particular week so that we could discuss this, because I think it's important.
Well, you know, I'm going to say this, and this is a lesson that I've taken with me for the last 20 years since I've been reviewing movies. So back in 1997, so Titanic opened. Titanic, up until very, very recently, was the second highest grossing movie of all time. And just today, it was passed by Avengers Endgame.
Wow.
So very interesting. That's right.
That's some good news.
Yeah,
All
so
right.
Titanic, breaking news, is now the third highest grossing movie of all time, bested today by Avengers Endgame. So a lot of people like Titanic. One film critic that didn't is a film critic that I really respect and admire, and that's Kenneth Turan from the Los Angeles Times. So his review was not favorable. James Cameron went after him, not on social media, because we didn't have social media back in 97, but he wrote something in the LA Times, published it. It was a rebuttal to Kenneth Turan's review. It's like, wait a minute. He didn't like the film. He wrote why. He backed it up. He's doing his job. Done.
Right.
His job is over.
Right.
And then a few years later, Kenneth Turan again, the movie Amores Perros, directed by Alejandro Gonzalez Inarritu, got rave reviews, except from Kenneth Turan. And he didn't love the film. I mean, I think he liked it, but he didn't love it. And kind of people called him out on it. Same sort of way, and this is before social media. So Kenneth Turan wrote an amazing article. Wasn't a review so much. It was about his experience being in a position of not liking a film that everyone else loved. And he said, you know what? Film criticism is subjective. It is an art unto itself.
Absolutely. I say that all the time.
Film criticism is an art because
is.
everyone is different. Everyone's bringing something different to their art of reviewing a film. And he said this, you know, when you love a film and everyone else loves a film, it's great to stand arm in arm with the other critics and be in unison with them. But when you don't love a film that everyone else loves and you back it up, then you have to stick to your guns. Be respectful of other opinions, but stick to your guns. And he said this, and I'll never forget it. He said, in film criticism, you are a gang of one, or you are nothing at all.
Ooh, I like that.
And that has stayed with me every time I have
Gang
been.
of one, or you are nothing at all.
There you go. How about them apples?
I love that.
I love it too, Carl.
What? Carl. Now he'd have just shortened my name and called me Carl. Oh, you are funny to me. You are hilarious. I'm so glad that we could have this discussion. And before we move on into our further discussion of films, as we're going to review some films here at the Curvy Critic, I just wanted to give a shout out to the family of John Singleton, who lost his life this week. John Singleton was the director of Boys in the Hood. He was the first African American to ever be nominated for the Academy Award as a director, and the youngest in that category, period. So I wanted to offer our thoughts and prayers here at Black Hollywood Live and the Curvy Critic to the family of John Singleton. I had the opportunity and the great fortune to meet Mr. Singleton last July, where I moderated a panel at the Los Angeles City Public Library for the 25th anniversary of Poetic Justice.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
and he told me things about the film that I didn't know, some things that I did know, like, he had a crush on Janet Jackson, but like, who's not going to have a crush on Janet Jackson? Like, if I was a dude, I'd have a crush on Janet Jackson too, I'm just saying. But, but I just wanted to offer that out there, and I would be remiss as a film critic of color, and especially of African American descent, to not bring that up in light of the events that occurred this week. So having said that, moving on to our first film of the week, Longshot.
Longshot.
I loved me some Longshot. I really did. It's a Lionsgate film. It stars Charlize Theron and Seth Rogen. They are an unlikely pair that actually knew each other when they were kids. Charlize was his babysitter. He was, and kind of infatuated with her. They meet later on in life, and some shenanigans ensue when she hires him to be her speechwriter as she is on the road to running for president of the United States. So what are your thoughts about that film?
I love the hell out of Longshot. I love this movie to pieces. When the Blu-ray for this movie comes out, I'm going to sleep with it under my pillow. That is how much I love Longshot.
Oh, no, not sleeping with the cover.
And here's why. So I saw Longshot for the first time at South by Southwest. And I saw it again recently. I wanted to see it again and review it with a fresh set of eyes. But so the thing that struck me about Longshot, for starters, because there were a lot of things, is this. Charlize Theron has been making movies for almost 25 years.
Absolutely.
You would never know it because she looks amazing, has not aged a day from like 2 Days in the Valley, or she was in That Thing You Do. I mean, she's a phenomenal actress. So we've seen her do almost everything. She has been great in dramas like Tully and Young Adult. She has really done an amazing job doing action films.
Atomic Blonde,
Fate of the Furious, and Mad Max Fury Road. But when was the last time you saw Charlize Theron let her guard down and look so radiant in a romantic comedy? A raunchy, R-rated romantic comedy, and Carla, she crushed it.
Yes, she did. Yes, she did. She did. Let me tell you something. When you talk about how radiant she is, every time the camera was on her face, I'm like, oh my goodness. What kind of moisturizer, facial, what is she doing to look like that on screen? Because it wasn't like a Vaseline filter. Like, that's what she looks like. Like, she's just drop dead gorgeous. But on top of that, you're right. I don't recall. She's probably done a comedy, but I don't recall what comedy it was. She did.
She did comedy. It was a Million Days to Die in the West. Remember that comedy she did with? It was like what's
That's
his
what
name?
I said. I don't remember her doing a comedy.
But the movie wasn't that great. But I remember because I have this like insane like Rain Man type of memory. But the thing about Longshot is just the way that sort of she's playing the Secretary of State. She's running for president. So it's sort of the culmination of these strong roles that she's had, whether they're dramas or action films. And so to show her in a more vulnerable state, in a radiant state, she's stretching in ways that we have not seen her stretch. And this is an actress who won an Academy Award for her transformative performance in Monster. And I'm watching Longshot going, Charlize Theron.
This is the same person.
Same person.
It's like,
I said Charlize Theron is a revelation. A revelation.
And this is why she got an Oscar, because she's on her gig. But let me just bring up the parts of the movie that were funny as hell to me. So this one part of the movie where they are, they meet each other for the first time since they were kids, and they're at that party, and he falls down. He falls down the stairs, and Boyz II Men goes, "Crack it down, baby." I laughed.
Crack it down.
They said crack it. He was like, "Crack it down." I laughed so hard, my stomach, like, even as I'm saying it, I'm laughing because it was just pure comedy. When that happened, I'm like, oh, we're going to have some fun for the next 2 hours. It was hilarious.
So here's Seth Rogen, and this is the long shot of the title. Not that you have a female Secretary of State running for president, that you have Charlize Theron and Seth Rogen end up together.
Yes, who is like in this breaker that looks like it's from like a old Richard Simmons workout video. It's just busted and wrong. His outfit from head to toe is just busted from the head to the toe, but he's really smart. So brain-wise, they match. Brain-wise, they fit.
Yep.
Brain-wise, they get along. And that is the commonality, and that is the thing that makes the unlikely pairing of them work.
I think Seth Rogen is hilarious.
He's pure comedy.
Now, Seth Rogen is another actor. He has stretched in dramas that he doesn't get enough credit for. He was terrific in a supporting role. Remember the movie Take This Waltz, directed by Sarah Polley? He was terrific in that movie. Not a lot of people saw it. And he played Steve Wozniak in Steve Jobs. He was terrific in that movie. Not enough people saw it. And
that was a great movie.
But when I think of the types of movies that I love about Seth Rogen, of course I think of
which one?
Katherine Heigl, The Knocked Up.
Oh, right.
Knocked Up was great.
Oh, yes. That was really funny.
But, the Neighbors films. And I'll tell you, one Seth Rogen movie that I absolutely, positively loved, and I watch it over and over again because it's streaming on Netflix, is The Interview. I think that movie is so friggin' damn funny.
Yeah.
I mean, James Franco was hilarious in that film. But so you buy the two of them together in this film, just like you bought Katherine Heigl and Seth Rogen together. The chemistry is great. The chemistry is infectious. You buy it. It is not the long shot that you think it is, because they are irresistible together.
And this is the thing this is one of the themes of the movie that stuck out to me. That made me go, this is interesting. So there's a scandal that takes place within the film. Usually these types of sex scandals, we see them associated with men politicians that are running for office. We hardly ever hear of this type of thing happening with a woman. And it was interesting to me in the film that it was this big, huge, ginormous deal made out of it, to the point where they were like, you're not going to be able to continue to run if you don't kick him to the curb.
Right.
And when men have, and in real life, I know this is a movie, but in real life, when men have sex scandals, ain't nobody trying to kick them to the curb. None of that's going on. They find a way to sweep the girl under the rug or the scandal under the rug, and they keep it moving, right?
That's right.
Like, as of late, this isn't a sex scandal, but it's the closest thing to it. So we have a president, right, who was massively involved. I gotta go. I can't talk about Longshot when I'm talking about
do your
it.
thing.
We have a president that had sex scandal of a life, has sex scandal of life, and yet this man sits in the White House. His wife, the first lady, is somebody that was posed taking nude pictures. These people are in the White House.
Crazy.
But if the flip had happened, if this had been a woman, the reaction would not have been the same. So I think it's really important that they address that in this film, to show the difference in gender-wise and what happens when these types of issues come up.
That's a great point. The gender swap of how it affects her versus how it would affect if the character was a male. Yep. But this is a film that made me think of the political romantic comedies that we've come to love in our generation of watching movies. Movies like Dave, movies like The American President.
Oh, I love American President.
Absolutely made me think. Yeah, it's a great film, and it absolutely made me think of The American President. And it's timely, it's relevant, it's a smart screenplay, and even though it is a romantic comedy, and it does fall prey to the tropes of the genre, the way it's written, the way they are together, it made those cliches feel fresh. It didn't turn me off, and I have to confess, I am not the biggest fan of romantic comedies because
really,
yeah, I'm not.
I'm actually shocked by that.
I'm just, I immediately pick up on the cliches and sort of the weaknesses of them, and in this case, I just picked up all the strengths. And Longshot, is a movie that absolutely has to be seen, and it's just getting pulverized at the box office this weekend because of Avengers Endgame. And I think this is, as much as I love Endgame, I think for a movie like Longshot to fail, it's going to send the wrong message that people don't want to see movies like this. Well, don't put a movie like this in theaters this weekend that Avengers is on every single screen. I mean, should have given it a little more room. I love Longshot, and absolutely people need to see it and support a movie like this. It's awesome.
I think people need to see it too. I just want to shout out some people in the chat room. Yasna Cavalleres, who's always here with me. She said, "Hey Scott, loved watching you on Collider." She's like, "You are truly the happiest man alive." Yes, I know this. I say this all the time. I'm like, he makes me tired. He's so happy. Soggy McMuffin said, "Great show going down here." And then GA said, "B CinemaScope says it all about Longshot. A little Seth Rogen goes a long way. His character was a caricature. I never for a moment believed the setting. Theron was good, but the whole political context was absurd. I could never suspend my disbelief, but they did their best and was moderately entertaining at times, ergo B." Well, GA, I disagree with you. I give it an A because I loved it. I thought Charlize Theron and Seth Rogen were doing their thing. I love the unlikely pairing. I love the political undertones of it. I just loved everything about the movie. It was funny. And, you know, the fact that Boyz II Men was in it wasn't, you know, a hurtful thing. Yeah. I loved having Boyz II Men in it. And I also love seeing Ice Cube's son, O'Shea Jackson, in there doing something. This is what I loved about O'Shea Jackson being in it. And I'll say this, and then and you say what you say, and we got to move on.
Yeah.
But this is what I loved about O'Shea Jackson in this film. He wasn't playing a thug. He wasn't playing a gangster. He wasn't talking like, you know, like most of the times they have black people in films talking like, they always have us talking a certain way. He's not doing that. He's not being a stereotypical black man in this film. He's playing a black man that has a very successful company.
Corner office.
Right, has a corner office. He's got a very successful company.
He's funny as hell.
He's funny. He's really funny.
And he's supportive.
He's very funny, supportive. He's a good friend. And I just love that he was like the wingman to Seth Rogen.
Yeah.
And that they took that role, which easily could have been something else, and they made it work for him and let him bring what was best about him to the role. And every time I see him, he reminds me so much of his dad.
I absolutely loved O'Shea Jackson Jr. in this movie. He was phenomenal.
Yeah.
What did you think of this performance in this film by Andy Serkis?
Okay, I wasn't sure. Wait, I wasn't sure that was Andy Serkis. I was like, is that Andy Serkis?
I had no
As the
idea.
old crusty man, yeah. I kind of loved him as that. He is like the Lon Chaney of the millennium. He is like the man of 1,000 faces for real, though.
So I saw the movie for the first time at South by Southwest, and I thought, boy, this... So there's a character in the film. He's like a billionaire media tycoon who is putting pressure on Charlize Theron, Secretary of State, for some political thing. And I'm thinking, wow, I've never seen this actor before, but he is a real scumbag. He's really good at being a scumbag. So then I saw the movie a second time, and same thing. I just thought I was watching this like white guy, you know.
It was the
being a
voice
schlub.
that did it for me.
For me, you know what did it for me? When I went to review the film, and I wanted to check the spellings
credits.
of everyone's, I'm like, wait, Andy Serkis was in this movie? Wait a minute, is that right? And I went, oh my
He was the crusty old dude.
He
the
was
shady
the crusty
dude.
old dude. He is a friggin' genius. He's a genius.
I'm telling you, he's like the Lon Chaney of the millennium. He's got like a man of 1,000 faces.
Yeah.
He really, really is. All right, so Scott and I both love Longshot. Go see it. It is produced by Lionsgate. Yeah, produced by Lionsgate.
Wait.
What?
Lionsgate. Here's the thing. Here's my selling point.
Okay.
Here is my selling point. Carla, you're going to love this. You're going to love this. Lionsgate is produced by the studio that brought you La La Land.
Oh, of course.
Oh.
How could he not be here for a day and not find some way to bring up La La Land? Okay.
There you go.
And there you go. You've had your one chance. But it was produced by Lionsgate, the same studio that produced La La Land. It opened in theaters on May 3rd. Check it out if you get a chance. It's starring Charlize Theron and Seth Rogen. On to our next title, which is The Intruder. Now, see, I can already tell. I can already tell you got shenanigans. I can already tell. The Intruder is produced by Sony Pictures. Is directed by Deon Taylor. Deon Taylor had a film out a few months ago called Traffic, which I kind of liked. It got slammed by by critics, and I'm afraid to say that Intruder is getting slammed by
26% of Rotten
Yeah, it's getting
Tomatoes.
slammed by critics as well. But the best thing about The Intruder is Dennis Quaid, because Dennis Quaid Dennis Quaid is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs crazy, but he is giving you, there is a moment in that film where he is giving you, here's Johnny from The Shining. I'm like, oh, really? This is how I feel about The Intruder. The best thing about it was Dennis Quaid. It honors, I guess is the right word you could say, all of the cliches about thrillers, like, the person living in the basement, the crazy person coming out mowing the lawn, all that old stuff. Like, all of the cliches of horror thrillers, psychological thrillers, they are all in this movie. And Deon Taylor knows those genres really well. And to his credit, he uses all of those little formulaic things in this film very well, but they don't serve the purpose of the film very well in this instance, I don't think.
Carla,
Here we go.
here we go.
I'm taking a sip.
Carla, I had so much fun watching The Intruder in the theater. Mm-hmm. This is a movie you have to see in the theater.
Absolutely.
With a crowd, because you are shouting at the screen, don't go in there. What are you doing? Oh my God, oh my God. And yes, first of all, I think it's very ironic that you have new movies from Charlize Theron and Dennis Quaid opening the same weekend. And here's why. Because both of these actors have been at it for a long, long time.
They really have.
Dennis Quaid, I think his first movie was Breaking Away back in 1979. Mm-hmm. And both Charlize Theron and Dennis Quaid, in their each of their respective films, have reinvented themselves with these roles in these movies. Dennis Quaid was fantastic as the crazy stalker in The Intruder, but overall, again, this is a movie that knows what it is. It knows exactly what it is. It's trying to be nothing more except being really good at what it is. And what it is a film that you have to see in a theater because it's a crazy, preposterous film.
It really is.
But it works.
But you're absolutely right. You do have to see it in the theater. And not for nothing, but one of my favorite movie stars of all time, Michael Ealy, is in it. He's very underused in this film, but it doesn't matter because he's on the screen. So I'm all for Michael Ealy being on the screen.
I love Megan Good.
I'm just saying, Michael Ealy, yay. And Megan Good.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You ever see Debs? Mm-mm. Debs? Oh my God, you got to see this movie. Debs came out in 2004. It is like a female, it's like not female, it's like Charlie's Angels, but it's like a low budget independent version. Is Megan in that? Megan is in that, and it's directed by Angela Robinson.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, and she directed Herbie Fully Loaded, which is a good movie despite Lindsay Lohan. Keeping with that theme where the show is going. But,
oh, no.
But The Intruder, it's like I tried to describe it. I don't want to diss the film because I enjoyed it. I had a great time watching it. It's a really good B movie. It knows what it is. It does not take itself seriously.
I will agree with you. It doesn't take itself seriously. It does know what it is. I jumped a zillion times.
Yeah.
I did. And so I also agree with you on the fact that you do really need to see it with people. If you're watching this as a screener or you're going to a screening where there's not a whole lot of people in the audience, it's not going to be the same experience.
Right.
And they even address that when they have been promoting the film. In the trailers for the film, they show a bunch of people giving their reactions to the film after the fact. So I totally agree with you about that.
It is,
and I love Deon.
Of all the movies, well, he's great. I interviewed him.
He's been here a zillion times. I love him.
Ball of energy, that guy.
Yeah,
I thought I
hilarious.
had ball of energy. He is a ball of energy.
Why is somebody asking me, is Michael Ealy shirtless? Why is that relevant to the movie? Why does Michael Ealy have a shirt on and not relevant to the film? Marlon Wallace.
But I mean, of all the films, like, yeah, you could say that, well, you have a movie like Avengers, which, it's a big spectacle. You got to see it on the big screen.
Absolutely.
But here's a movie that's not a spectacle. It's a suspense thriller, one that's a fun suspense thriller. But it is truly a film that is served well by the shared experience of seeing it in a dark theater with a bunch of other people.
Absolutely.
Boom. Yep.
Boom. You said it. That's it. So let's move on to your favorite subject of all time.
That's got to be...
What do you think it is?
Well, it's one of two things.
Okay.
All
Hit
right?
me.
It's one of two things. Everyone who knows me that I am obsessed with two things.
Okay.
The Beatles and Star Trek.
And that would be the one.
That would be the one, Star Trek. I am always down for talking about Star Trek.
So Star Trek, the very first film, is celebrating a very, very special anniversary. So I was so glad that you were here so that we could talk about this because I know that that's your jam.
Oh, big time.
And I love Star Trek too. I'm a Trekkie. Hey, I can't do my other hand.
Oh, see, I can
my other
do
hand
both.
is hard, but I can do this one. Hey.
Everyone.
Oh, you can do both.
do it?
Wait,
Yeah,
can I do
you
that?
good? No?
I can't. This other hand. Okay. So anyway, I'm a Trekkie. My favorite TV version of it was, in addition to the original, was The Next Generation.
Me too.
That's like my favorite TV version of it. But what most people don't know who are not Trekkies, they don't know that the original version of the show was only on the air for 3 years.
3 years.
It feels like it was on the air longer because the reruns played forever. So you thought you were always seeing new episodes, but you kind of really weren't.
You know, the original series is really special. Nothing in the history of the medium has ever been replicated like the way that Star Trek was on for the 3 years. It was on NBC 1966 to 69. The reviews weren't great.
No,
but
they were very
weren't,
mixed.
They weren't as bad as sort of the history, the myth makes it out to be. But the fact is, it was solid but not spectacular. But unfortunately, like for example, in the second season of the original series, Star Trek won its time slot. Like it was the highest rated show on NBC.
It was.
But you know what movie beat it? You know what TV series continually beat Star Trek week after week? It
Gunsmoke.
Star Trek was clobbered in its second season by Gomer Pyle.
Shut up.
Clobbered.
Gomer Pyle?
Gomer Pyle.
Ooh, that's
now,
funny.
On NBC for the night, Friday nights, Star Trek was the highest rated show on the network for Friday night. But over on the other network, Gomer Pyle beat the crap out of Star Trek.
That is pure comedy.
But you see, for me, I was born in '68, so I was born while the series was going. I obviously didn't see it when it was going, but I discovered Star Trek. I was part of the generation that discovered Star Trek while it was in syndication, when it was airing 5 nights a week. That's how I discovered Star Trek, and that's how a lot of people, certainly from my generation, discovered it. And you said that we're here to talk about the anniversary of the first Star Trek movie. There are 2 first anniversaries for Star Trek that we're celebrating.
Ooh, do tell.
One is the 40th anniversary of Star Trek: The Motion Picture,
Right.
which came out December 7th, 1979.
Absolutely.
The other one, more applicable to what we're doing today,
Okay.
is the 10th anniversary of the J.J. Abrams directed reboot of Star Trek 2009.
Oh.
This was the version that starred Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto.
Right, I remember that version.
Okay, now you talk about the various shows. Okay, obviously there's no question that my favorite is the original, followed in a close second by Next Generation.
Yeah, so we're there with that.
Okay.
We're totally there with that.
Now, over the years, this is interesting. So I liked Deep Space Nine. It wasn't my favorite show, but I appreciated and admired and respected what it was. But as the newer shows came out, like then you had Voyager and then Enterprise, my feeling was, well, if I like the show, great. But if I don't, that's okay. I still have the original series. I still
your
have
heart.
Kirk and Spock,
Aw.
William Shatner, Leonard Nimoy in my heart. But here's what happened with the reboot, the 2009 reboot. So now, instead of being its own thing, like, the Star Trek Discovery show, it's a completely separate thing. Now you are stepping on sacred territory with this movie because you are recasting Kirk and Spock. You're messing with my boys.
Your boys, okay, all right.
I remember the first time I went to an advanced screening of Star Trek 2009. It was April 21st, 2009.
Okay, let me just pause and say that your memory for stuff and dates is just insane. Insane. Okay, but continue. I just need
Carla,
to acknowledge that because it's just ridiculous.
Carla, if I
it's
could,
actually fascinating and mind-boggling all at the same time.
if I could monetize that, I would be set.
Yeah, you need to find a way to monetize that or do something, bottle it. I don't know.
But my publicist friends at Paramount, they knew that I was a massive Star Trek fan, and they invited me to an advanced screening on April 21st, and there were like 6 people in the theater at the Paramount Theater on the Paramount lot, which is an amazing, amazing theater. And for a split second, I went into that film and I was like, what if I don't like the movie? What if I don't like it? And then they're going to say, what'd you think? And I got to be honest. So I'm watching the film, I'm having a great time with it. And then there's the point in the film when the Romulan ship from the future goes back to the past and messes up the timeline. Well, there's a point on the bridge of the Enterprise when Zachary Quinto, as Spock, says, this ship from the future has altered our timeline, altered this timeline, and our destinies have changed. What might have happened to us before, it's all going to be different now. And I thought, wait a minute. So you're telling me that the original series didn't happen? Like, you're taking that away?
You were through, weren't you?
I was like,
you were
wait
spent.
a minute. But then I thought, wait a minute. You're not erasing that timeline. You're starting an alternate timeline. Out there in the universe, the original series happened. You had the Tribbles. You had Edith Keeler. You had the Planet Killer from the Doomsday Machine. You had Khan. You had Khan in this universe too, which is very different. But I loved Star Trek 2009. I thought it wasn't just a great Star Trek movie. I thought it was a great movie, period. And it was also the most cinematic Star Trek movie we'd seen since the motion picture. I love Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. It's my favorite Trek movie. But it was done by the TV division at Paramount. Star Trek the Motion Picture is cinematic. Okay. Star Trek the Motion Picture, celebrating its 40th anniversary, is the most misunderstood and underappreciated Star Trek movie of them all.
Why is that?
Because people thought it was boring.
I didn't. I was all about it being a movie. I was like, what? Star Trek is a movie? I was all about that.
But when it came out in 1979, people expected Star Trek's answer to Star Wars.
Oh, no, that was not going to happen.
And when it came out,
no.
Star Trek the Motion Picture was actually Star Trek's answer to 2001: A Space Odyssey.
It was.
It was a cerebral film, but also something else that people didn't like about the first movie, and I didn't at the time, was that Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, they weren't really getting along. They weren't playing the characters that I loved in the original show. But, thematically and chronologically, narratively and structurally, it made sense because they'd been away from each other for a while. They were brought back together. Kirk kind of pulled a dick move to get the Enterprise back. Spock is back in the picture, but they're questioning his motives. And the three of them had to learn how to work together again. And I thought, being older and being a critic and looking at how they played with their relationship, I actually thought that was a really smart move.
Okay.
So I love Star Trek the Motion Picture, but I really love the reboot. I think it's awesome, and I think all three of those movies are great for different reasons. And I think the interesting thing about the three movies that Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto did is that the first movie is the best movie. The third movie, Star Trek Beyond, is the best Star Trek movie.
Okay.
Star Trek Beyond is the closest in spirit to the original show.
Okay.
Than the other films.
Okay, I hear you on that.
The second one, I didn't like where it went with the Wrath of Khan thing, but it's a great action film.
All right.
So
cool.
There you go.
Well, see, I knew you were the right person to bring over here to talk about that because I'm a Trekkie, but I'm not a Trekkie like you. You're like Trekkie and beyond.
Obsessed.
I'm
obsessed. Yes.
And I'm so glad that you could bring all this information. But to round out the conversation, it did open in the 40th anniversary one. The original Star Trek movie did open to mixed reviews. And it earned about $139 million worldwide for Paramount. And since then, there's been 14 Star Trek movies total. There's been numerous TV series, as we've talked about.
Wait. So 14, you're including Galaxy Quest, right?
Yes.
Okay, because Galaxy Quest is a Star Trek movie.
14 movies total. Let me see. There were a total of 6 seasons with the first series and a total of 726 episodes. That's a lot.
726 total episodes. You could have a network that just covers Star Trek.
Exactly.
Between
you really
all
could.
Between all the shows and all the movies.
You really
and then
could.
You have movies like Galaxy Quest and documentaries about Star Trek and so on.
Yeah.
Like you could have a network just on Star Trek.
You really could. Maybe somebody's thinking about that. No. You really could. And I definitely wanted to give a shout out to Star Trek Discovery, which is on the air right now, because one of my Broadway babies, Wilson Cruz, is on there. My girlfriend, Michelle Yeoh, is on there. And so I can never pronounce her name right. Sonequa Martin Green, who's the first person of color to be a commander in the Star Trek
She is so
franchise.
Good.
Yeah, she's
is
lovely.
So good. Now wait, Avery Brooks.
Oh right, I forgot. Avery Brooks
was on Deep Space Nine. Right. But
see, I told you I'm a Trekkie, yo.
I got you. I got your back with Star Trek. But Sonequa Martin Green is she's just a great actor. I mean, she just
She's
happens to be
beautiful.
crushing it as
She's
Michael
beautiful,
Burnham
too.
on Star Trek Discovery. But yeah, there
she's
you go.
absolutely gorgeous. All right, so that's that movie-versary, because I like to call when we do anniversaries of films here movie-versaries, because I just think that's funny. And the next one that's having a movie-versary is Mean Girls.
Oh, Mean Girls.
Mean Girls is celebrating 15 years.
March of 2004.
Yep.
There you go.
15 years, man. It was written by Tina Fey, and then Tina Fey flipped it around again and turned it into a Broadway musical. It made Lindsay Lohan a star. It made all these, what's her name?
Rachel
the blonde.
McAdams.
Rachel McAdams, and the other one.
Amanda Seyfried.
No, her.
Yeah.
Made all, yeah. I'm like, her. It made all of them stars, and everybody was all excited about it. And what I didn't know when I did some research on it is that it was based on the 2002 Rosalind Wiseman's self-help book, Queen Bees and Wannabes, Helping Your Daughter Survive Cliques, Gossips, Boyfriends, and Other Realities of Adolescence. That is a long freaking title.
That's
so now I see
fetch.
why it ended up being Mean Girls, because that right there is a lot.
You know what? Mean Girls, I remember when I saw the movie, I was invited to an advanced screening by my good friend Tim Menke, who was a Paramount at the time. And he goes, I'd love for you to see this movie. It's a good one. I went and saw it. And you know what? In the summer of 2003, I loved Freaky Friday.
Oh, yeah, that was a great movie. I love that movie.
Loved Freaky Friday. Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan, and I couldn't believe this was the girl from The Parent Trap. You know, it's like 5 years since The Parent Trap. And I thought that she was delightful in Freaky Friday. And Mean Girls, little did I realize over the years that Mean Girls would be her crowning achievement. And I say that...
Oh, that makes me sad, because she's really talented.
She is so talented, but she had... Unfortunately, her
she
family problems got the best of her.
She has some demons.
She's got some demons. But Mean Girls it's a great movie. It's a great high school comedy. It really holds up. The screenplay is razor sharp. Amy Poehler in a supporting role.
Yeah.
It's like one of those movies where you go back and you watch it and go, I cannot believe all the people in this film.
I know, isn't that's the thing about movies. When there's a movie like Mean Girls or an original Star Trek, at the time that these things were happening, these people were not these big mega superstars that they are now.
Yeah.
And when you go back and you look like, oh my God, they were in that. Oh, they were in this. Oh my goodness. And you get all excited, because then you're like, oh, I got to watch it again, because I got to see what they were like then. So
when was the last time you saw Dazed and Confused?
Oh, it's been a minute.
Dazed and Confused, or
it's been a minute, but I see Fast Times at Ridgemont High all the time. That's one of my favorites, because I just I just love that whole scene with the Phoebe coming out of the water, and it's just ridiculous.
That is great.
It's pure comedy. I just love that.
Does anybody knock anymore?
Right. It's hilarious. I just love that. So moving from the movie-versaries, let's get over to the streaming picks of the week very quickly, as we were running out of time. I love having you here. This wasn't enough time.
Yeah.
Okay, so there is a movie that is called Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile, that is on Netflix right now. That stars Zac Efron, and he's playing Ted Bundy.
You go first.
Okay, so I've seen 5,000 different movies and miniseries and docuseries about Ted Bundy, and this film, it was okay for me, but Zac Efron's performance in it and the young lady who plays his wife.
Lily Collins.
Yeah, her. The two of them, Lily Collins, yeah. The two of them are really, really, really good, but that was the only redeeming quality I could find in that. I am so sorry.
Here's why I liked this movie, Extremely Wicked. It was not what I expected. And I say that in a good way. So you hear Zac Efron, who is the great looking guy from the High School Musical movies. He capitalized that, over the years. And here you have him playing Ted Bundy, a convicted serial killer. And I thought this was going to be a slasher movie that showed him killing the people, getting the blood on his face, and sort of really tearing apart the image that he's had over the years. And that's not what this movie was. What this movie really worked for me, it was directed by Joe Berlinger, who also at the same time that this movie was picked up by Netflix, because it screened at Sundance, where it got bought there. Joe Berlinger was also working on a documentary miniseries, The Bundy Tapes, which is also on Netflix. But the reason I love the film was because it was not what I expected, and it really shows it is so effective at showing how charming Ted Bundy was, that even watching this movie, I started to doubt his guilt. I was like, did he really do this?
I didn't for 1 second.
Like, I thought Zac Efron's performance in particular, absolutely, he is the best thing about the film. But I did like the movie. I was engaged from start to finish because it really did make me like go, maybe he was wrongly accused. I mean,
Yeah.
did he really do this?
We're going to agree to disagree on that one because I was like,
I mean, he did it.
like, I'm like, because I'm one of those people that I'm fans of shows like Snapped and things like that. I watch true crime stuff. My mom is in the studio. She's laughing at me because she knows I will sit there and I will watch those things for hours to the point where my mother thinks something's wrong with me because I watch them. But I watch them all the time. And I know for a fact, after watching all these little whodunit types of things, that it's always the person that you never think in a million years would do it is always the person that does it.
Yeah, that's
time
fair. Yeah.
and time and time and time again.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I think that Zac Efron was the best thing about it. It wasn't my favorite, but yeah, so there's that. Yasna brought up something. She said Reality Bites is celebrating 25 years as well. They celebrated that at Tribeca.
Oh, that's right.
I never saw that one, so I had to check that one out.
Oh my
Yeah, I
God.
didn't see
Oh my
Reality
God.
Bites.
Reality Bites is great. Another film where you watch and go, look at all these people in this movie. Obviously, you have Winona Ryder and Ethan Hawke, but you have Janine Garofalo. Steve Zahn is in the film. Of course, Ben Stiller.
I love Steve Zahn.
Ben Stiller's directorial debut. Reality Bites is...
okay, well, I have to check that out.
It never like broke through at the box office, but it's aged very well. It's definitely worth seeing on its 25th anniversary.
Okay, cool. Yep. Well, as we get up out of here, I wanted to just tell people about a couple of things that are coming up. So my streaming pick is Ask Dr. Ruth, which is going to stream on Hulu on May 9th. And everybody knows Dr. Ruth as being like the goddess of good sex. She's the person that came on TV that would say words like vagina, penis, masturbation, and it just made people really uncomfortable, made them turn red, made them sweat, made them cover up their hands, head in their hands and all that. But what a lot of people don't know about Dr. Ruth is that Dr. Ruth ended up being in an orphanage because the Nazis came to her home, took her dad away, and she ended up being shipped off to Switzerland. And there's a whole nother story about her that lies beyond her being a sex expert. So for those reasons alone, I would suggest going to see Ask Dr. Ruth on Hulu on May 9th. I also suggest going to see Bolden, about the king of New Orleans jazz, Buddy Bolden. That also opened this week. Ugly Dolls opened this week, which I kind of love, but the critics kind of dogged it out. I loved it. It was great. And there was one other film that I wanted to talk about. Oh, and White Crow, which follows the life of Rudolf Nureyev. That is all of those things are in theaters. I didn't get a chance to talk about all of them because we are running short on time, but I did want to mention them as we get up out of here. So Scott Movie Mantz.
Yes, Carla Renata.
It was so wonderful to have you here. I
so
loved
great.
having you here.
You
were just like a
with you.
wealth of conversation and information, and I always learn something from you every time you come. I love you to death. I really do.
Well, the feeling is mutual, and I would do anything to work with you on a more regular basis. I think you're
so
awesome.
much.
You're
I
one of my
appreciate
favorite
you.
people, Carla.
So tell the folks right there where they can find you.
Well, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Movie Mantz. That's with a TZ, where you can check out all my reviews and video reviews and everything I'm doing on my website at moviemantz.com.
Cool. And you can find me, Carla Renata, at The Curvy Critic across all social media platforms. You can catch me right after this at AfterBuzz TV doing the General Hospital After Show. And we'll be talking about the daytime Emmys in real time since they are happening right about now. But until next week, and when we come back next week, we'll be talking about All Is True, Palms, Tolkien, and I'll have a special guest here with me then too, but you'll have to tune in next week to see who it is.
Ooh.
But until then, y'all, I will see you next week for episode 59 of The Curvy Critic here at Black Hollywood Live. Love, peace, and hair grease. See you later.
LLMP.
On behalf of our BHL staff, we would like to thank you for tuning in to Black Hollywood Live, the world's first digital broadcast network devoted entirely to urban entertainment and pop culture. Check out our Black Hollywood Live YouTube page for even more great programming and amazing content. And be sure to subscribe and like our channel when you do. I'm your BHL host, Nakia Monet, and you can find me on all social media at Kiki Boom Boom or at Black Hollywood Live. Black Hollywood Live, Hollywood redefined.
BHL or its owners or principals.